The guillotine blade fell, but a real suffering happened long before that final moment. We all know how Marie Antoinette died, yet few understand the full scope of torment she faced in her last desperate hours. The official records are chilling enough, but the hidden human details are far more shocking. This is a dark journey into the final day of a queen, revealing the psychological and physical agony that history often glosses over. By the end, you will know the true depth of the calculated cruelty she endured. We will uncover the secret escape plot that backfired horribly and the vile accusation designed to break her spirit. What does it take to completely strip a person of their dignity before they are gone forever? Her new home was a stone vault deep beneath the streets of Paris. After the relative comfort of the Temple prison, Marie Antoinette was transferred to the Conciergerie, a place grimly known as the waiting room for the guillotine. This was not merely a change of location, it was a deliberate downgrade into sheer squalor. Her cell was a damp, dark room that reeked of mildew and despair. The air was cold and heavy, the walls perpetually weeping moisture. Instead of a bed, she was given a simple cot with a thin, coarse mattress. A small table, a rickety chair, and a stove for warmth completed the meager furnishings. Every single luxury, every last reminder of her former life had been systematically removed, but the most psychologically draining feature was the constant, unblinking surveillance. A wooden screen separated her from the two guards stationed just outside, a barrier that was never fully closed. They could watch her every move, day and night. She had no true privacy, no moment of solitude. Even her most basic human functions were observed. This was not about security, it was a calculated campaign of humiliation. The revolutionaries were not just imprisoning a woman, they were methodically dismantling a queen. They sought to erase the symbol of the monarchy by stripping her of every shred of dignity, reducing her to a common criminal in a bare cell. Can you imagine the mental toll of such relentless exposure, of never being able to let your guard down, even for a single second? It was a slow, grinding form of psychological warfare designed to break her spirit long before the executioner could break her body. Yet even in that grim vault, a flicker of hope dared to appear. It arrived not with a bold declaration, but hidden within the delicate petals of a flower. A royalist sympathizer named Alexander de Roosevelt managed to visit her cell. During his visit, he supposedly dropped a single carnation at her feet. It seemed like a simple, kind gesture, but it was a dangerous secret. Tucked deep inside the flower's bloom was a tiny, tightly rolled note. This was the Carnation Plot, a desperate attempt to orchestrate her escape. The message outlined a plan, a lifeline thrown into her ocean of despair. Imagine the frantic, pounding heart as she unrolled that tiny paper, the surge of adrenaline at the thought of freedom. For a few brief moments, the damp stone walls must have felt less like a prison and more like a temporary obstacle she could overcome, but the plot was discovered almost immediately. The guards grew suspicious, the note was found, and the fragile hope was shattered. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Any remaining privileges, the small comforts that made her existence slightly more bearable, were instantly revoked. Her captivity became absolute. She was placed under 24-hour surveillance by two guards who were now instructed to never let her out of their sight, not even for a moment. This was the true purpose of the failed plot, to extinguish that last defiant spark of hope within her. It was a cruel cycle, a psychological trap. They allowed a glimmer of possibility only to crush it completely, proving to her that there was no escape, no future, no reprieve. The walls did not just close in physically, they tightened around her spirit. What must it feel like to have your salvation dangled before you, only to be snatched away and replaced with an even deeper darkness? The psychological torment of her cell was merely a prelude to the public spectacle designed to annihilate her completely. Her trial was not a search for justice, but a theatrical performance of character assassination. The Revolutionary Tribunal charged her with treason, a predictable accusation for a former queen. They spoke of squandering state funds and conspiring with foreign powers. But these political crimes were not the true heart of their attack. The most devastating blow was saved for the courtroom's final act, a charge so vile it was meant to shatter her very soul. The public prosecutor stood and leveled an accusation of incest against her own son, the young Louis Charles. In that crowded, hostile room, They forced a mother to confront the most unthinkable violation, a claim crafted to destroy her morally and strip her of her last remaining identity. The air must have gone still. Every eye was upon her, waiting for a crack in her composure, a tear of shame or a cry of outrage. Instead, she met their cruelty with a legendary and profound dignity. She did not address the judges. She turned to the mothers in the galleries, the ordinary women of Paris, and she said, "I appeal to all the mothers present." In that single sentence, she transcended the political prisoner and became simply a parent, asking others to understand the profound horror of the accusation. It was a masterstroke of emotional defense, turning their most personal attack into a moment of universal human connection. This was perhaps the cruelest cut of all, a psychological wound far deeper than any blade. They did not just want to kill the queen, they wanted to obliterate the mother, to make her name synonymous with depravity for all of history. Her quiet defiance in that moment was her ultimate victory, a final reclaiming of her dignity from the hands of those who sought to crush it entirely. Dawn on October 16th broke with a chilling finality. Inside her cell, the queen was met not by a judge or a jailer, but by the executioner himself. Henry Sanson entered her space, a figure of grim practicality. His first order of business was a seemingly simple task to cut her hair, but this was no hygienic preparation. He took shears and chopped her locks short at the neck, a brutal and intimate violation. This act was stripped of all ceremony, a purely functional measure to ensure the guillotine's blade would meet no resistance, that her death would be as efficient and impersonal as possible. Her famous hair, once a symbol of her extravagant style, was now just an obstacle to be removed. The next stage of her humiliation was a carefully orchestrated public spectacle. She was not granted the dignity of an enclosed carriage, the simple mercy offered to common criminals and even to her own husband, Louis XVI. For Marie Antoinette, they provided only an open cart, the same kind used to transport livestock or refuse. She was made to sit on a bare plank, her hands bound behind her back, completely exposed to the city. The cart jolted through the streets of Paris on a slow, meandering route designed to maximize her exposure to the mob. For over an hour, she endured the screaming faces, the jeers, the raw hatred of the people she had once ruled. They saw a deposed queen, a symbol of everything they despised, finally brought low. Yet through this torrent of abuse, she offered nothing but silence and an almost superhuman composure. She did not weep, she did not plead, she did not even look away. She simply stared ahead, her back straight, her gaze fixed on some distant, inner point of strength. The physical journey from the Conciergerie to the Place de la Révolution was a map of her complete downfall, every cobblestone a reminder of her lost power. But her silence was its own form of power. In refusing to give the crowd the reaction they craved, in denying them her fear or her tears, she reclaimed a final shred of control. She was being stripped of everything, her title, her hair, her life, but in those last moments her dignity remained utterly her own. What inner resolve does it take to face such a violent end with such unbroken stillness? Each step in her final journey was another layer of dignity stripped away. It began in the stark misery of her cell, a place designed to break her spirit through relentless exposure and squalor. It continued with the cruel trick of the Carnation Plot, a flicker of hope offered only to be violently extinguished, proving her captors held absolute control over her fate. In the courtroom, they moved beyond politics to a deeply personal attack, leveling an accusation so vile it was meant to destroy her very soul as a mother. And finally, on her last morning, they reduced her to a functional object, shearing her hair and parading her in an open cart for the mob's entertainment. Her execution was the final physical end, but it was merely the period at the end of a long sentence of dehumanization. This was not simply the death of a queen, it was the calculated, piece-by-piece destruction of a human being. So when you remember Marie Antoinette, remember more than the guillotine. Remember the woman who faced this cascade of indignities with a silence that spoke volumes, and a composure that became her final, unbreakable armor. What do you think is the most haunting part of her final days? Share your reflections in the comments below, and if you want to uncover more of history's hidden stories, be sure to subscribe. The past is filled with secrets waiting to be told.